discussion. We see it as a future discussion. Because when a community gains access to reliable energy, businesses stay open longer, students study under better conditions, healthcare facilities operate more effectively, new opportunities emerge. People begin to imagine different possibilities for themselves and their communities. At the same time, we need to know that it's not just like renewable energy will not just help us alone, right? Because funding alone will not transform Africa. Solar panels alone will not transform Africa. Real progress begins when innovation meets community ownership, when policy meets implementation, and when people are equipped with skills needed to sustain what is being built. That is why this gathering matters. Over the next 2 days, we will hear from experts. We're going to be hearing from entrepreneurs, sustainability advocates, investors, policymakers, and development practitioners. Some conversations will be inspiring, others may be uncomfortable. Some ideas will challenge assumptions, and honestly, I hope they do. Because the goal is not for everyone to agree, right? The goal is to leave here with a clearer understanding of what works, what doesn't, and what we can do together. From this conversation, I hope that partnerships emerge, hope that projects emerge. We hope that investors meet opportunities. We hope that young people discover their career path. That hope is also reflected in one of the initiatives closest to us as an organization, the EcoNow Academy. Africa doesn't only need renewable energy infrastructure, right? We need renewable energy, and because energy will require technicians, engineers, project managers, innovators, entrepreneurs, and problem solvers. The jobs are coming. The question is whether we are preparing people for them. The EcoNow Academy is our answer to that challenge. We want to create a platform where young people gain practical skills, where they gain industry exposure and real opportunities to participate in the energy transition, not as observers, but as contributors and leaders. In many ways, this conference is part of the journey. For us, it is the beginning of something bigger, a commitment to human energy, a commitment to strong communities, commitment to creating opportunities for younger people. For being part of this moment, please participate fully, ask difficult questions. Our guest speakers are people of great intellect, exchange ideas, and most importantly, remain open to possibilities. Welcome to the EcoNow Renewable Energy Conference. We are glad that you are all here. Thank you.
Sabrina, she has put in so much energy to make sure that this conference comes to reality today. Without further delay, let me formally introduce myself. My name is James Kennedy, and I will be the moderator for this conference today. And also, I have my co-moderator, Mr. Matthew Oga. Our goal conference again is what? Transforming communities through renewable energy and investment. And I can tell you, the conversation we are about to have are both timely, deeply, and important to our community. We have guest speaker for this conference, and I will do the introduction formally before I welcome them to their chairs. Our first guest speaker is Mr. Ernest. a young environmental and climate education advocate based in Calabar. He served as a departmental president the University of Calabar Department of Environmental Education. He has actively led state and local youth in various sustainable campaigns in partnership with notable environmental and sustainable organizations within Calabar and Cross River to hold. I am very happy to introduce him. You know, he's someone I've known back then in the University of Calabar through a lot of struggle. And I'm glad that he's taking this drug to meet people even outside the world. Mr. Ikamb, right, please. And our second guest speaker for this conference is going to be Mr. So permit me to welcome Mr. Ernest to take the pulpit as he gives his own part of the knowledge. Please pay attention, write down your questions. If you have any contribution at the end of the day, you'll be given the opportunity to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Good afternoon, everybody. Firstly, I feel delighted to be here in the midst of young people like this. Like he has rightly said, my name is Ikamb Ernest Magashi. I'm a young person just like you, and I like discussing environmental issues of climate change, sustainability, and all of that. And I thank God because today we are here as young people to look into very critical matters that are affecting our world, that are affecting our society, and that these matters are what we need to do as young people to ensure that our society becomes a better place for each and every one of us. The theme for this conference is transforming communities through renewable energy. And I'm very happy because this is not just a theme, it is a word that if we look into it, it carries a lot of weight and meaning. That if we can understand the rudiments of these words and be able to access them, they are what specifically are is great value for us to making our own place a better place. Sometimes we see environmental issues as things that are abstract, but environmental issues are not just things we hear from other places. They are things that are within us. There are things that even now that we are seated here, they are affecting us. They are affecting every one of us. We cannot shy away from it. So I am very happy that we are here as young people to discuss this. And I try that we start into this discussion practically look into these issues in a way that we'll go back and make immediate progress. The topic I've been given to discuss on is climate adaptation and community development. Climate adaptation and community development. Now we can see that this is also in line with the theme, which is improving communities through renewable energy. So when we talk about climate adaptation, I believe we know what climate and climate change are, but for the purpose of this presentation, I would like to take us briefly through a few steps so that we can clearly understand what we are discussing about. Now, what is climate change? It's a word we've been hearing. as if almost every time we hear about it, it's been mentioned, we listen, we see it on media, social media and all that. But what is really this climate change? Climate change is simple, an abnormality in the pattern of weather over a long period of time. It's just an abnormality, something that has transformed, that has changed. That is the changes that has occurred within our own climate. Changes that have been observed within a long time. That is just climate change. So that in order not to bring those big English, those words that may seem confusing, that's just in a layman way. Climate change is those abnormalities that are taking place in our weather, in our climate. Now, those abnormalities are things we can see. Which if we can pay attention to our own environment, we can say that these changes have actually taken place. Changes like weather, the rainfall pattern, the way rain used to fall. Those of you who have been in Calabar for the past 10 years can attest to the fact that the pattern of rainfall now in Calabar is no longer the way it used to be. The rate at which sun shines now is not the way it used to be. I remember those days in the university when we were in Unica, we said it's as if the sun in Unica is different from every other sun because the sun hits directly as if it's just concentrated in Unica alone. These are some of the effects of what we are really talking about. These changes that have happened within this period. These are things that have never been experienced before, but we are beginning to see them experience, beginning to see them real. So the question now becomes, what is the cause of these things? What is really causing the change in the pattern of rainfall, the change in the pattern of sunshine, the change in the pattern of planting seasons, the change, the consistent flooding within our towns like Calabar? If you go out today, it just rain now. If you go outside, you'll see that almost everywhere it's being flooded, at least to a certain level. So what is really causing these changes? These are questions we need to be asking ourselves as young people. What is really causing these changes? And then until we find solutions to these questions, that is when we can have a better place. That's when we can provide better solutions for every one of us as a young person within your immediate environment and to the larger society. Now, like I said, we said climate change is the long-term shift in weather patterns, whether globally, locally, regionally, or otherwise. It can be globally. It can be observed within a particular region, and it can be observed within an immediate environment. It doesn't have to be within the right environment. It goes across. It goes across. So these changes affect the pattern of livelihood of the people. These changes affect how we interact with one another, how we interact with the environment, and how we interact with the society. Then we are looking at climate adaptation and community development. We've been able to look at what climate change is, and then we say it's a shift, it's a change, and then we say this climate change is often caused by a lot of things we do. Now, sometimes these things we do, we don't really know that they are really harmful to the environment. Now, for instance, you just step out, you get a bottle of Coke. After drinking, you're inside a taxi and you just fling it. You drink sachet water, before you know, you just fling it. Now, that small incident of you flinging that bottle of water or that sachet water, you feel it's nothing. But it is really because of what we are experiencing today. Because by the time this careless disposal of waste we are doing gets accumulated, they block our waterways, we see that there will become an increase in the level of the sea. Like when our waterways are blocked, for instance, the gutters, the drainage systems that have been provided for free flow of water, those your plastic bottles you are discarding away are going there to block. They are dumping inside those drainages. Before you know, that drainage is full and there will be no place for water again to pass. And then when there is no access for water to pass, the water now bounces back. If it's in your compound, you see that it's now coming directly into your house because it doesn't have any other place to go. At the end of the day, you discover that there is no other person that have caused what you are experiencing, but it is you yourself. So these little things we do, you just go, you enter, you see a place, you see a tree that has been existing for some time, and then because you feel it's no longer needed, you just go and cut it, and then you don't make any effort again to replace it. Before you cut one, you cut two, you cut three, before you know, the whole forest is deforested. And then it makes the environment within that place already exposed to what? To direct sunlight. And then those gases that are already stored within those trees are evaporated into the atmosphere. And then they hit the Earth's atmosphere. And then it causes global warming. That it now warms the Earth more than it had used to be. So these little things we do, sometimes we don't even know that we are doing them. But when we become conscious of these things, now you go to a place where they say, please dump refuse here. Or even in the normal refuse bin we have within our towns, they say, please put it inside. You go, you dump your own outside. When the rain comes, it flushes into the gutter and it blocks it. So these things we do are things that are causing the changes we are experiencing. They are things that are causing the damages we are bringing to the environment. Now, what is adaptation? Because we are looking at climate change and climate change, and then we are looking at climate adaptation that leads to community development. Now, what is adaptation? Adaptation in a layman is what fits you into a particular environment, like fitting into a particular environment. That's adaptation. But as environmentalists, as climate advocates, we see adaptation as what? As actions that are put in place to help people or communities and ecosystem to adjust to a particular environment. Now, when there are changes in a particular environment, there is a need for individuals within that environment to adjust or to fit into those changes. That is adaptation. You don't just live because it has happened, but you need to fine-tune a way of adjusting yourself into that environment at that particular moment. So we say adaptation means knowing which variety of crops, trees are best suited to tackle warmer temperatures and drier soil conditions. Adaptation looks at preparing for the impact of both the present and the future. Now, when you are able to fit into a particular environment, it makes you prepared for the impact that comes to that environment at a particular time. Now, it makes you, let's say you go to, for instance, you rent a house where there is no light, and you have been staying in a house that has constant light 24 hours. Now, for you to be able to stay comfortably in the new house that doesn't have light, you need to adjust yourself. And by adjusting yourself, it means you need to take it within yourself that something different has happened. So now there is no more light. Maybe I should buy power bank, or maybe I should look for solar to install to enable me get frequent light so that my gadgets can be charged at all times. You need to devise another means of what? Of suiting yourself within your new environment. Now that's adaptation. So as environmentalists, as people who are conscious of the environment, when you find yourself in a changing environment where there are noticeable changes that are as a result of climate change, there is a need to adjust to fit into those changes. For instance, like you are in a flooded area, you live in a place where there is constant flood. Now, what do you do? Because you cannot stop the flood from happening. Maybe, let's say, you cannot stop the flood, but there are things you can do to both to ease yourself from the flood, and then so that the flood cannot have greater impact on you. So we are looking at, so that is adaptation. So we must be able to understand these terms, both the climate, what causes it, and what you can do, which we have been able to look briefly into. What causes it? What can you do? And then we'll be able to see what adaptation really is. And then, what is climate adaptation? I think I've just said that it is what is the changes that need to operate, that you need to operate or fit normally in a changing climate. Climate adaptation is a set of actions that organizations, communities, and individuals must undertake to withstand potential harmful effects of changing climate or capitalization on climate-related opportunities. Now, what then is community development? Community development. A community is a group of people who are connected to shared geography, beliefs, interests, or identity. Now, a community can be a global community, it can be local, and then it can be digital. Like Facebook is a community, WhatsApp is a community. We have digital communities, but as for the purpose of this, we are looking at a community, an environmental community. So whether a global community or a digital community, these communities strive on shared goals and active interaction. Community development is therefore a holistic process where members of the community come together to take collective actions, identify common problems, and generate solutions. That is community development, where members of a particular community come together to identify common problems. Now, what are the prevailing challenges within our community? Like there is consistent bush burning by members of our community. There is deforestation by members of our community. There is indiscriminate disposal of waste by members of our community. There is a lot of things. Now, community members come together to sit and identify these problems now and generate solutions. They don't just identify the problems, they generate solutions. That is what results to community development. When members are able to identify problems and then generate solutions for those problems. It is both a practice and an academic discipline aimed at empowering local communities, building resilience, addressing systematic inequalities. It encompasses growth in infrastructural, socio-economic, environmental, and changes that improve livelihood. Now, let's look at climate mitigation and climate adaptation. Now, these are two different words that seem as though they are one to those of us who are, some persons who are not environmental conscious. Now, climate mitigation seems as though it is climate adaptation, but there are two different things. There are practically two different things. Now, what is climate mitigation? Climate mitigation, it is efforts that are aimed at reducing the increase of carbon sequestration to limit the magnitude of future climate change. Now, let me break this down. Climate mitigation is efforts that are aimed at reducing climate impact. That does it. Now, when you mitigate, it's reduce. You put in actions or efforts to reduce. And then when you adapt, you are doing what? You are trying when you adapt when mitigation refers to aim of reducing the greenhouse emission. You reduce by remitting the impact of climate change within your environment. And then when you adapt, you are adjusting to avoid severe impact. You are adjusting to avoid severe impact of climate crisis within your environment. That is mitigation and adaptation. So as climate advocates, as young people who are conscious of climate activities, climate change, these are things we need to understand, because you need to understand at what time you should ensure that there is a reduction in the crisis prevalent within your environment, and at what time you should manage the situation to be able to fit into that crisis. Now, we look at Cross River State as a climate vulnerability hotspot. Please. Okay. Now, I want us to come back home. Now, let's look at Cross River State. A lot of us are from Cross River State, and we've grown up in Cross River State. Some of us have been in Calabar for some time now. And then we can assess that there are issues within Cross River State that are of great concern Now, Cross River State is a unique state because Cross River State is one of the states in Nigeria that is blessed with abundant natural resources. We have abundant climate climate resources. Now, it is only in Cross River State that we have one of the largest vegetation, the Cross River National Park. National Park. I don't know how many of us who have been to National Park, but it's a vast vegetation that has been of great importance, not just to the state, but to the country and to the region, to Africa as a whole. Now, before now, and even now, if you don't know, Cross River State received funding for that national park you are seeing. Yes, Cross River State is being given funds, it's being funded to keep those trees the way they are, so that they will not be tampered, because it's helping to do us to tackle the environmental challenges that are coming up globally. Now, the trees, vegetations are of great importance to solving climate issues because they help in scaling down the impact of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. They help in scaling down. Now, most of these carbon we breathe out, trees receive them and send back carbon dioxide to us. Now, so when these trees are there, they continue in the exchange of these gases. They give to us, we give to them. By the time we destroy all the trees, we see that there will be nothing left for us. The whole environment will be contaminated, and then we will be prone to a lot of gases, contaminated gases in the atmosphere that can easily result to different things like diseases and many other things that we cannot say. So Cross River State is one of the states in Nigeria that is blessed. We say Cross River State occupies a strategic ecological position within Nigeria. The state hosts approximately half of Nigeria's remaining tropical forest and contains globally significant biodiversity resources with major ecological assets, including the Cross River National Park, community forest, mangrove system, river system, wetlands, mountains ecosystem, and Obudu and Obanliku within Obudu and Obanliku. This ecosystem provides essential services such as carbon, watershed protection, biodiversity conservation, and livelihood support. Now, despite this ecological advantage that Cross River State possesses, climate change is still increasingly threatening our environmental integrity as a state, and then our well-being too as people, especially within places like Cross River, Magashi, Apabuyo, Ikamb, Etung, Biase. These are places that we are experiencing flood activities. In fact, while I was preparing for this presentation, I came to discover that the Nigerian Meteorological Agency has predicted that there will be more flooding in Cross River State this year, as like more than it has ever been in other years. So we can see that Cross River State is already experiencing a lot of these challenges, despite the fact that we are blessed with all these natural resources. Now, communities located along low lines, particularly vulnerable during this rainy season to climate-related threats, including coastal erosion, rising sea levels, loss of fishing grounds, increased storm, and lots more. Now, what is resulting to all this? It takes us back to what we discussed, that the effects of climate change. What is making Cross River State experiencing these challenges, being vulnerable to these challenges, despite the fact that we are blessed with abundant natural resources, ecosystem that has been provided to help us as a state. One thing is it consistent logging activities within our forests. If you go to places like Boki, Etung, you see that
the rate at which timber logging is going on, you imagine if you just wonder. So these are things that are affecting us. These are things that are causing what we are experiencing today. The rate at which this, if not, thank God for the current administration of our state that is putting every effort in place to see that our Calabar clean, safe. Come to Calabar was smelling. Yes, Calabar was smelling. But thanks to our governor, the Chief Prince, who is making sure that Calabar is being given a new face. Because these are things that have been affecting us. It has been increasing the level of, now we see, we residents of Calabar, we know that we can see that we are surrounded by water everywhere. Go to Marina Resort, the big river. Those of us that have been to Unica, you see that there's another water. And then when you go to Magashi, another sea that is there. That one is even bigger than any other one. So by the time we don't become conscious of our activities as a people, we are making ourselves vulnerable to these challenges. Please, okay, now, so in order to go back to our topic, because our topic is climate adaptation and community development, so that we'll not discuss and then forget what our topic really is. Now, what is climate adaptation? How do we achieve, or what are some of the approaches that we need to do to adapt to climate crisis? Now, we have community-based adaptation approach. Community-based adaptation approach emerged as a response to concerns that conventional adaptation planning often includes local populations from exclude local populations from decision-making process. It emphasizes participation, empowerment, local ownership, and context-specific solutions. Now, community-based approach to adaptation is ensuring that every one of us, young persons like we are seated, become included in community decision making. It ensures that we come together and provide solutions to the challenges that are surrounding us. Because to every climate mitigation planning, young people, just like you and I, must become involved, because we are persons who are able to ensure that these policies or these activities that are being spread out are being observed within our own environment. So it must ensure that local communities within the environment, within where these climate challenges are being experienced, must become part and parcel of the problem. Because it's only when they become part of the problem that they can propose solutions to the problem. Now, by this approach, we look at how communities are able to identify climate-related crises. Are local communities able to design solutions to those crises? And then are these solutions being implemented? And how sustainable are their implications? And then we also look at what efforts are put in place to monitoring the outcomes of the implementation. Now, this approach ensures that communities must become involved, and by being involved, they will be able to identify the problems that are prevalent within their environment, and then as they identify these problems, they provide solutions. And as we provide solutions, they ensure that these solutions are being implemented. Because by the time they don't become part of the planning process, they are totally excluded from whatever solutions that are being put in place to ensure that these crises are being solved. So you need to bring them into the planning process by involving, so that they can really participate. Because where you don't involve people in your planning, implementing it becomes difficult. They see it as they pay nonchalant attitude to it, because they were never part of the planning, so they don't know what it takes to execute that plan. So Now, once they are part of the planning, implementation becomes possible. And then what efforts are put in place? And then after it's been implemented, they go further by ensuring that the solutions are being monitored so that they become sustainable. By becoming sustainable means they last over a long time. Because once these solutions are not sustainable, then there is no solution. Climate solutions must be sustainable. The solutions that are being provided to last over a long period of time. So communities must become part and parcel of this to ensure that they provide solutions that are sustainable. So in doing this, they must do what? They must participate. Participation is important, and there must be inclusiveness. Both public and private institutions, community members, women, youth, men, children, everybody must become part of the process. It must be an inclusive process that brings together everybody so that decisions are being shared among the members of the planning during the planning process so that nobody is left. And then it must also ensure local knowledge integration. It must also ensure the integration of local knowledge. Now, by local knowledge, we mean what is prevalent within a particular community is not the same with another community, with another environment. So community members must become part of the planning process to bring about their local knowledge into the planning process. Now, let's say there is a challenge within a particular environment, and then there is a way this challenge has been handled over time by members of that community, although it might not be sustainable. But this knowledge is important because by the time this local knowledge is being put in place and it is being harnessed, it is able to do what? The solutions that are put in place they become sustainable because the community feels involved, because they are part of the planning and they are part of the decision because their knowledge, what they know, is being used in making those plans. So it no longer becomes a difficult thing for them to execute, to see how the plans are being implemented. Now, it must also, by community-based adaptation, but also ensure empowerment of communities, that communities gain the capacity to manage future climate risks within their area. And then it must ensure ownership. Community must take ownership within a particular problem. They must take ownership of their problem. When they are involved in the planning process, they take ownership of that problem. They take the problem as theirs. And then the implementation and the profiling of the solution becomes easy. Now, another approach to climate adaptation is socio-ecological system. Now, by socio-ecological system, we mean the framework for understanding interactions between human societies and ecological systems. We understand how the interaction that exists between we humans and the ecosystem within us. Now, the ecological system within us. Now, this theory holds that human and ecosystem are interconnected components of a single adaptive system. Therefore, handles the ecological conditions, influences social outcomes, while human activities simultaneously shape ecosystem dynamics. Now, for example, when and the other components of the ecosystem. Now, when we understand that what we do, our actions, affect other components of the ecosystem, we tend to do what? We tend to adjust our approaches to fit in so that we don't continue to do things that will bring about more climate crisis. Now, when you are in an environment where you have a lot of trees, you have animals, then what you do every day is kill them, destroy the trees unnecessarily without making effort to replace. You hunt, you do illegal hunting, and then you just wake up, set fire on bushes with no cause. All these things, you don't understand the fact that your action is also altering the existence of other components of the ecosystem. Now, your well-being is as good as that of the well-being of the other components of the ecosystem. The animals and the other things that comprises the ecosystem, the microorganisms that are within the ecosystem, because we need each and every one of them for our interaction and our existence within the ecosystem. Now, another approach is vulnerability framework. By vulnerability framework, we mean it's an approach for assessing climate risk. It conceptualizes vulnerability as a function of three interconnected components, like the degree to which a community experiences climate hazards, such as floods, droughts, storm, or heat waves, and the extent to which exposed populations are affected by climate change, and the ability of individuals, households, and institutions, communities to respond effectively to climate impacts. Now, these parameters are not only essential, but are critical in assessing climate risk among vulnerable communities and understanding best adaptive approaches that suit them. Now, the vulnerability aspect approach entails that we must understand that at a certain point of our existence within an environment, we are being vulnerable. By vulnerable, we are being exposed to climate crisis. At some point, we must understand that at this point, what our actions are exposing us to climate crisis. So therefore, we must put out measures to see that we cut those activities that are exposing us to climate crisis, and ensure that we make a balance between our existence, our existence within that environment, so as not to bring about more harm to the environment, so that our lives will not be endangered. So by vulnerability, we look at at what point are we prone to climate crisis. That was why when I made instance of Cross River State, we said when we start experiencing several issues like increase in changes in rainfall pattern, sunshine, and the flooding and all whatnot. At that point, we know that yes, we are already being vulnerable to climate crisis. We are already experiencing the climate crisis. So we need to adjust. We need to make adjustments to our actions every day as we live within that environment. And then the last approach is climate justice approach. By climate justice approach, we mean understanding inequalities associated with climate change. Understanding inequalities associated with climate change. This theory emphasizes that climate impact and adaptation opportunities are distributed evenly across populations. Communities that contribute least to greenhouse gas emissions frequently suffer the greatest consequence of climate change. Similarly, within these communities, vulnerable groups often experience disproportionate impacts due to the existence of social and economic inequalities. Climate justice calls for equitable adaptation, financing, inclusive governance, protection of vulnerable populations, and recognition of indigenous rights, fair distribution of adaptation benefits. Now, by climate justice approach, we are looking about how we are looking at vulnerable communities groups. Now, how are different groups within a vulnerable community respond to climate challenges? Now, when different groups of communities, now we take this adaptation approach, community adaptation approach. We said different groups of the community must become included in the planning process of in the adaptation planning process. So, by climate justice, we look at the inclusiveness of both public and private institutions. How vulnerable populations like children, because we know that with population there are always vulnerable populations, like children are most vulnerable to changes, whereby there's cholera outbreak. When there's cholera outbreak, it mostly affects children. And then when there is most of this communicable disease that comes as a result of contaminated waters and all that, it makes their children are more vulnerable to these challenges. So by climate justice approach, we look at which vulnerable populations, we looked at how we can ensure that different groups within a community are being safeguarded from these challenges or from these crises that are affecting us as a people. Now, turning our climate adaptation into everyday practice. Now, let's go down to what practical ways of how we can turn climate adaptation into everyday practice. Remember, we are looking at climate adaptation and community development. Climate adaptation treated as tomorrow's problem. However, adaptation means building improvements into the physical and human capital to create jobs, deliver services, and protect people. The ability of a community to protect and improve its livelihood depends on whether those systems can withstand the pressure climate change is already placing on them. And then extreme weather conditions like sea level, floods, droughts, fossil fuel erosions are already straining budgets, demand, damaging infrastructure, and disrupting livelihoods today across communities of our nation and sub-African region. This brings the need for a critical response to building climate adaptive communities that result in development. As climate hazard becomes rapid, climate resilience should neither be procrastinated nor treated with less priority. Now, how can we turn climate adaptation to everyday reality? How can we make it an everyday process so that it no longer becomes what we strain to achieve, but it becomes part and parcel of us as a people? Because as we grow within every community, as live and interact with each community, we must make this interaction an everyday process, enable us achieve enable us adapt or fit into those challenges that are affecting us as a people. Now, one of the candidates by building capacity through community-led action. By this we mean making communities to form the bulk of with informal communities forming bulk of residential development across the globe. Government and other institutions must see communities as equal partners in addressing climate challenges. There is a need to upgrade, integrate, and adapt environment with housing and extend the provision of services to include formal settlement as part of formal settlement. Now, how can we make this an everyday process? Now, public and private institutions. Now, sometimes if you go to places where there are related crises, one of the things we know that is most observed is to see if there is flood within a particular area, they respond by sending palliatives to those places, and other palliatives. Now, these things only come when there is a hazard. Now, how can we make it so that we don't just receive palliatives, but we do these palliatives don't just come where there is a hazard, but where there is a need for it. Now, government can cut down expenses for maintaining and managing hazards by ensuring that people living within an area are being empowered to carry out, to live well within that environment. For instance, instead of waiting to give palliatives, there are other things to do. Things like you empower those people. What is the common challenge with these people? Now, when there is a threat of a climate crisis, you think into action, look into those crises, see how you can tackle those crises, so that by the time that impact is being experienced, by the time that crisis come up, the impact become less. It no longer affects the people as it should. Local knowledge and resource food change. We have looked at that when we're looking at, so it means taking use of the local people knowledge, making use of what they know, because it's when you take into cognizance the knowledge of those local people that it enables them to become of the implementation process of climate adaptiveness, because it makes them involved, and when they become involved, it helps them to see it as an everyday process, because they don't see it as a one-time process, because it is what they know. This is what I know, and this is the solutions I can provide. So it no longer becomes something strange to them. It becomes what it's within them, and they can do every day. Changing in government funding and investment, local communities, government must upgrade, or government must also make sure that the existence of local communities, families, the livelihood of local communities is being improved to enable them fight against climate crisis. Now, when communities suffer as a result of what they have, for instance, the little resources they have, they try to see how they can use it to tackle the challenges of climate within them. For instance, instead of government going to proper things, the little resources they have, maybe that can be used to take care of other things, other needs which they have, they now use it to tackle the challenges that are within them. But when government makes provisions for these needs for the people, they become it makes them to now have to become well relaxed in ensuring that they no longer strain to carry out these processes. They no longer use what they have. They suffer to put up this to tackle these challenges by themselves, because government is already tackling those challenges. Another issue is building resilient community network, ensuring that there is adequate flow of information within communities that are vulnerable to climate crisis. And then building need-based community formations, forming groups, ensuring that communities are formed within a particular problem, and then they form clusters of the problems. Like, for instance, you form, if there is a particular challenge within a particular area, you make sure that members within that community form a group to ensure that they sensitize other people about those challenges. By that, it helps them to become aware of those challenges, and then it becomes an everyday process, because when they take up those challenges by themselves, it becomes part and parcel of them, and it helps them to have better solutions to those problems. And then building strong systems and local decision making must ensure that local communities must participate to climate resilient. Local communities participate to climate resilient evidence. Community adaptation becomes easy when systems work together with local decisions to identify or meet local realities, making resilient pay jobs. And investing in climate change should not be based on avoiding losses, but rather should be on the basis of saving lives, protecting livelihoods, and giving business confidence to local residents to invest and hire and grow. So by giving local communities the confidence to invest within their own environment, it helps them to be able to adapt to processes that brings about development within their own area. Now, when we are able to put all these things in practice, community becomes not just tackles the challenges peculiar to them, but they ensure the growth of that community they help to ensure their own growth, because it improves their own life, gives them a better place to live, gives them development, our own within places of concern. As an organization, for instance, like Ikamb now, setting up this conference, there are what other things we can do as an organization, as climate, to ensure better adaptation for local communities and residents. We can establish community climate adaptation committees within, and you establish community climate adaptation committees, form members within of a particular community, become committee members to ensure that the smart agriculture program, increase adaptation financing for vulnerable communities, which are just initiatives, integrate indigenous knowledge into climate policy, and then empower disaster preparedness and early warning systems. By this, we can, both as institutions and individuals, ensure an adaptive community is able to move from climate crisis, and then also climate adaptation into community development and planning. Now, conclusively, climate change continues to threaten sustainable development across Nigeria, and particularly among our vulnerable communities like Cross River State and other regions of the nation. But however, successful action must extend beyond environmental action to encompassing poverty reduction, livelihood security, social inclusion, and climate justice. So climate adaptation extends beyond just environment to reducing climate change impact, but it goes as far as ensuring that it reduces poverty and then providing better livelihood for us, and then also ensuring social inclusion and climate justice for communities. While significant challenges remain, including adequate financing, weak institutional coordination, and empowering communities to lead the adaptation process offers a practical. The climate adaptation not just be viewed merely as a response to environment, build stronger, inclusive, and sustainable communities capable of thriving under changing climatic conditions. Sustainable development goals. Thank you very much for your time, and God bless.
Thank you so much. Can you just clap for me for saying thank you? Let's clap for the speaker now. I just knew about the meaning to jealousy while we were in this conference. That jealousy could also be if they ask you to clap for someone and you refuse to clap for that person, you are jealous of that person. I saw some hands, so there are some jealous persons on this conference that did not clap for our speaker. Please, if you're not jealous, clap for this young man. Mr. Brent, Mr. Ernest just speak to us as a young person, advocate. He spoke as a president. You could see how he was speaking from the perspective and also engaging with how communities can come into ensuring that truly there is transformation when it comes to the society regarding climate change. Thank you so much, Mr. Ernest, for that wonderful delivery. I'm very, very sure we will be elaborating on this conversation as we proceed. But then we have another speaker who is supposed to take us on transforming renewable energy, transform the community. His focus was on climate change. So he made mention of things like the forest and flood, all of those things that could affect the community and how we can solve it. So now we want to pivot it to something that is also climate related, but has to do with energy, solar. So to lead us in that conversation, he was supposed to join us physically for that conversation, but he will be joining us virtually. Mr. Brent Young, he's currently not on the call, but while we wait for him to join virtually for the conversation, I don't know, is there anyone here that would love to see an insight, either from the online community or from members of the audience on site, regarding what Mr. Ernest has taught us? Is there any question for him? Is there any contribution? So we're giving out just 1 minute to do that before we proceed to the next topic. Any concern? Any? I thought you were writing, so we want to keep our questions for later. So I can see Mr. Young on the call. He left again. That is how young people behave. Please don't just understand with him. He's a young man, and he's saying us how they used to behave. So okay, I think the next speaker is having network glitch. Hopefully he joins us. So waiting for that to happen. Is there any question? Okay. I know we are very, very smart people. We may not have questions to ask. But you can just, during the welcome address, I was paying keen attention. And also when the speaker was making this presentation, the emphasis was on ensuring that this conference doesn't just end as a conversation. So I'll call person from the audience to just share with us, what is your take home so far from the conference? What have you learned? What will you be doing differently? He said something I know when some of us here in this conference we used to do. They say don't dump breakfast by 6 p.m. You will go and do by 8 o'clock. Wait. So those other people, you're not somebody's parents. Walk. Who will be continuing with that kind of, let me not even do it. So just here with us, what is your take home? Anybody? Anybody? Or you are content shy? Don't worry, just say something, I will just do anybody may make me so. In a class when a presenter speak and there is no question, it therefore means they really answer or the student truly understand. That is thinking till when it gets to exam time and you see question number 2. You're like, what? Lecturer did not teach this. It is you that did not understand. So, okay, there is somebody on the call that will be coming in to talk to us virtually, Mr. Maurice Nelson. Okay, so Mr. Maurice Nelson will be talking on the topic Okay. All right. All right. So thank you for that information. All right. So since the on-site participants don't have something to add, so the first presenter, I think there is somebody online that would love to say something. Okay. And Mr. Maurice Nelson, please, you can unmute your mic and share your insight with us on the conversations we're having already.
Hi everyone. Good afternoon. Can you hear me, please? Oh, all right, please. Can I have a response? Can anyone hear me?
Yes, you can hear you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's great to be here. My name is Maurice Nelson, and I am an architect. I major in sustainable architecture, and I do researches as well in sustainable architecture and an advocate of climate change as well. So the topic we're talking about climate change, adaptation, and community development. There's anything I always used to advocate about a lot is this because it goes hand in hand, right? If you're going to be adapting to the already problems, already climate issues that we're having in Nigeria, we're going to be adapting. We're going to try to, see how we can develop strategies to adapt to all of the issues that have been happening. We need to understand that it is very very pertinent to put into consideration the communities because I would shock you because I would like to tell you that most of the climate change effect and everything we're experiencing in Nigeria or maybe Africa as a whole, most of it didn't come from us. As you know, the statistics are already showing us that the most people that emit the harmful gases are not in Africa, all the way from the US to, India. They have the highest number of emissions. China, and the rest of all the other countries, they are emitting more. But you see, the effect is not just in one location, it goes to different other locations. So instead of trying to do something we cannot control. Instead, we try to do the ones that we can control in our environment, in our immediate environment. Let's take, for instance, the flooding issues that are happening, the flooding and everything that have been happening around. Right? You understand that flooding is not just from the bad drainages and the rest of them. There are other flooding issues that come up from as a result of coastal regions, like Bayelsa, Cross River, and the rest of other regions that are very close. They are coastal cities, right? And then so we have to come up with strategies as indigenes, as people that owns the community. Because if strategies come up from the community, you agree with me that they are going to be owned by the communities, and they are local strategies that we can adopt as citizens in our different environments instead of waiting for the government, to come up for us, do the rest of the things. We sometimes we just wait. It's not rocket science. Sometimes we just wait for the government, to come up for us. Say okay, let's wait for the government to come up and bring strategies and the rest of them. There are other local strategies that we can adopt, in our communities. Take for instance farming. I'm running a program on disaster risk management, and I came across some adaptation strategies that farmers employ, they put in place to ensure that they deal with climate change and erosion. And these are things we don't even know. These are local strategies. I recently learned that farmers even used to leave their farms, when they leave farms for like a very longer time without cultivating the farmland. They leave it for a number of years and then it grows, and the rest of them. So they leave it. That's why I see during the rainy season, during the excessive rainy season, you see farmers leaving their farmland in the north and coming into the south. I don't know if you have noticed that either they are coming for for menial jobs, and the rest of them. See, this would they call Meroa in the north. So they come to different cities. They come to Abuja, come to Lagos, come to other major cities as well. Helping people to fetch water. Those are strategies that people take, and these strategies are things that that's not just all of it. That's like one of it. There are other ones they do as well. So they take menial jobs. They leave those farmlands. For the farmlands to receive enough moisture, and then so those are the strategies that they take, and different other strategies as well. So the main idea about this whole thing is that it helps the community build ownership on that thing, right? So when local knowledge is being employed into climate change adaptation and fighting climate change, being able to adapt to the things that are happening, the effect of climate change and the rest of them, it helps to engender community ownership. That's the very first one. And the second one that really happens is that it helps the people come together. There's something called FGD. I know we know about it, focus group discussions. When we come up, I think it was the time we went for a research in one of the communities in Abuja, FCT Abuja. What was this community in Gwagwalada? Those of you that have known Gwagwalada, there's a community called Old Kutungu. We went there to do a research, and when we got there, we had a focus group discussions where we had people coming together telling us what we brought climate change to their own understanding. We brought climate change to them, to their own local dialect. So we went there with people who could translate from what we're saying to Hausa and the rest of them, and Wasa and the rest. So we went there, we spoke to them, and they were telling us what they experienced. And from the experience that they got, we were able to find, a unity. There was a unity. People that would probably were quarreling with each other, you will not know. But it helps the community a lot. When the community is not unified, there is a very big problem. But when you come to these communities talking about climate change and the rest, one of the very important things that engender community development is unity, right? So the first one I said was community ownership. The second one is unity. So it brings unity, and it helps people to understand from everybody's perspective, from the local perspective. That's what local climate change adaptation strategies helps us to work on. And then also it strengthens local economies, right? So instead of just waiting for, like I said, instead of waiting for the government to bring up strategies that will help you and the rest of them, it helps local strategies. For instance, I'll talk about early warning systems, early warning science, early warning systems. When we got to that community, I'm using this community because that's one of the recent researches that I've done. When we got to these communities, we asked them, how do you know when flood? Because they suffer from flood, right? That is like one of their major issues, flooding. So we ask them, how do you know that flood is going to come? How do you take out people? Because the community is very vulnerable. When we talk about vulnerability and capacities in different communities, we talk about the vulnerability refers to how vulnerable are they to the effects of climate change. So how are they going to adapt during that period when the flood comes? How do they adapt, right? Sometimes they told us they outlined their problems. They told us they had broken drainages at some point. They had this, had that, and the rest of other things. They mentioned their problems, but you see, they don't have a lot of capacities to be able to challenge the vulnerability. When the flood came, they don't have a lot of, so they have. When I mean capacities, I mean, like I said, capacities are those things that are going to help you when there are those strategies, there are those facilities, those things that you have that are going to help you when this when this climate when this effect, or when it probably like flooding, like they talked about, when flooding comes, how do they adapt to what was happening? So the capacities they had there was not enough. But you see, there's something that they mentioned that I would like to point out in this meeting, right? They mentioned that they had have early warning systems, right, to be able to tell people that, okay, rain is going to be coming, and this is going to happen. So they told us that they have early warning systems. How? So they had these what was it, go around town cry, right? They have town cry. They have local knowledges that we are not aware of. The man says something. The Mangwa, they used to call them Mangwa, right? The Mangwa, that the chief, like the district head or something, told us that that they have local knowledge on how they can know when rain is coming and when rain is not coming. Now this is not now this is not what is it called? Now this is not this is not weather forecast. No, this is not. They don't watch weather forecast. They don't listen to television. They don't listen to radio. They don't even watch televisions a lot in that place. But you see, they have their own local weather forecast, and how they could, they could work on that, right? So this local knowledge helps to strengthen local economies because they don't have to be waiting for either buy television or buy all those kind of things just to ensure that that they come up to speed. But they can use their local knowledge, and then it helps to keep the money they have into doing other things like maybe opening up businesses, and sending their children to school and the rest of them. And then finally, on this note, I'll talk about it helps to protect vulnerable groups. So we have vulnerable groups in different communities. Vulnerable groups refer to say okay, I'll just give an example. Say the older people, the people with disabilities, the what's it called now, the pregnant women, the children, and the rest of them. These are vulnerable population in different communities. And for the community to be developed, you cannot do without these people, right? You not say because you want a community developed, you now leave them aside. No, you cannot leave them aside. You have to put them as a part of your plan. So for them to be able to work on it, their strategies, their community strategies has to put in consideration these vulnerable groups, right? So when we got there, we asked questions about the vulnerable groups. They told us simply that when it comes, when this thing comes, they have different religions. I mean, it's like in mixed religions. They have both Muslims, they have Christians, they also have traditional worshippers and the rest of them. They said that they have like for people that are in churches, these are like I was talking about unity as well, right? During this period, they don't care whether climate change does not care whether you are a Christian, whether you're a Muslim or not. When the thing happened, when the flooding happens, all of them go into one area. They can go into schools. They had like I said, their capacities. They had their primary schools and secondary schools, which could occupy up to about 2,000 people, 3,000 people, at a go when this thing happens. And also they had churches, they had popular churches like they mentioned. Anyway, when we're doing our transient work, right? Transient work is when you go into the community to know what's happening, to know the capacity that they have, to identify infrastructures and the things, the facilities that are available in that community. When we go to our transient work, we discovered different churches, right? I'll not mention names, but there are different other Pentecostal churches, Catholic churches and the rest that are available, that their facilities are big enough to accommodate people when this thing happens. So it helps to protect all of these groups of people, whether they are vulnerable, whether they're not vulnerable, it helps to protect this group of people. And from there is a certain level of unity, right? And then finally, I've talked about finally two times now. Finally, there's another one that it does. It helps to people from different places to help them, right? So we had, what we drew a Venn diagram. A Venn diagram is showing relationship between a particular, variable and the other. We drew a Venn diagram, and then we discovered that in this Venn diagram that we drew, the closest people to them were their chiefs, right? Oh no, their chiefs were the people that answered to them mostly when this flood hit them. And this thing has been happening for a very long time in that community, and they have been trying their best to use their community strategies, their local strategies to help themselves. And this has been able to develop them over a while. They had people coming into their communities. They had the UN, they had the Red Cross, they had NEMA, they had SEMA, and the rest of them that came into these communities to develop one capacity or the other. The way it was in the past 5 years is not the same way it is now, because we did an historical timeline and discovered that by then the level of development they have now it's not the level of development they had 5 years ago. People are coming in, businesses are coming in, and the rest of them, and it helps them to be able to let's say probably in the next 5 years it will be much better. Maybe they will have more capacities, like probably drainages that's going to help them fight this flood that has hit them, right? So yes, that's one thing I really wanted to talk about today. I think I don't know if my time is up, but I think that's like one of the things I really wanted to work on. Yeah. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, organizers, for this. I'd also take questions if there are questions, and if there are no questions, and then probably we'll go ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Morris. I can see a hand. Okay, I think that was your own way of showing appreciation. So thank you so much. I think the conversation is getting more and more interesting. And we'll be doing the panel session very, very soon. I can see the second speaker already on the call, Mr. Brent Young. But I think he can come in later for his conversation. But we'll just proceed now straight to the panel session. And all of our panelists are already on the call. So to introduce the panelists, by so to introduce one of the panelists, just permit me to read his bio. So one of our panelists is a distinguished youth leader, a social impact strategist, and advocate for decades of experience driving transformative initiatives across Africa. He is the founder and chairman of the Association for Student Social Welfare and Student Chamber of Commerce, where he leads programs focused on youth empowerment, enterprise development, and civic engagement. His work centers on building scalable systems that position young people as key drivers of economic growth, policy influence, and social innovations. Strategic collaborations with institutions, government, and development partners, he has mobilized thousands of students into impactful initiatives that advocate national and global development goals. As a panelist at the Econa Renewable Conference 2026, he brings a unique perspective on youth inclusion, leadership, and the role of young people in accelerating sustainable energy transition. Ladies and gentlemen, I would love us to welcome this panelist, Ambassador Victor Ade Kolaju. Let's just recognize him. Even those on the call, you can also show appreciation to our panelists. Another of our panelists is a young entrepreneur, a graduate of mechanical engineer, a solar energy professional, and operations manager at Genix Vitex. He specializes in solar energy systems, inverter technologies, and intelligent surveillance solutions. He is a member of the African Renewable Energy Network and graduate member of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, and a Dahao Technology Certified Video Surveillance System Engineer. He is committed to promoting sustainable energy solutions, technical innovation, and renewable energy awareness across Africa. And this panelist is no other than Mr. Brent Young. Can we also show some appreciation to Mr. Brent? Yeah. Okay, thank you, Mr. Morris and Mr. Young. I can see you on the call. All right, and the last of our panelists, who we already heard him spoke earlier. I think he's ruling today for us. We heard him already, Mr. Ernest Magashi, who is a young environmental and climate education advocate based in Calabar, Cross River State. He has served as president of Environmental Education Student Association at the University of Calabar. And he has actively led students and local youth in various sustainability campaigns in partnership with notable environmental and sustainability organizations within Calabar. So these three persons will be helping us discuss further on the theme of the conference today. And to moderate that session is no other than our very own. She She works with the Ikamb Limited, a startup under the Higher Technologies, and she is Miss Queen Uga. So please, Miss Queen Uga, can you just come take over and start the moderation?
Thank you very much, Sam. I welcome everybody once again to this conference. I hope you're learning. Remember, for every conference, it's important that there's a take-home message and something you say to yourself that you practice. And although I've not heard anybody ask any questions, we have some questions for our panelists. We'll just go straight to the point. Okay. Our first question this afternoon will be to you, Mr. Ernest. So we want to know, community participation is essential of sustainability initiatives. How can communities be better engaged as active partners rather than just beneficiaries in renewable energy and sustainable development projects?
Okay, thank you very much for this privilege once again. Like I've said earlier during my presentation, one of the ways that community members or individuals can become active partners is first, inclusion into the project. And because, like I said, when members are part of the process, they become the key drivers of that process. Now, for instance, I like bringing my scenarios down. Recently, there is the state government of Cross River State started a renewable energy project whereby there's training. They brought cars, electric cars and buses and tricycles for residents of Cross River State. Now, how does this community members begin? You see that the government has made effort to see that it trains members of the state to become artisans in ensuring that in the maintenance of these cars. Now that's one approach of ensuring that they don't just become beneficiaries, but they become active partners. And by the time you bring them in, you start the project, train them, give them the money that they don't just benefit from what is coming, but at the end of the day, they have what it takes to contribute to the growth or to the continuity of that project. That's one thing that makes them to be active partners. Because if you just give it to them and they don't have the idea of putting it together, then they just benefit and they have nothing again to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Please, a round of applause. Okay, and for your next question. So, okay. Sorry, Mr. Ernest, I'll be back to you.
No problem.
Let me go to our other panelists. Mr. Brent, are you with us? Mr. Brent.
Yeah, I'm with you. Good afternoon, everyone on the call.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm not present at the hub. I had an emergency to attend to yesterday, but I decided I'll join whichever way. Once again, I'll say thank you to Mr. David, the Health Technologies and EcoNow to be a part of the conference, the EcoNow Renewable Energy Conference 2026. And also to everyone who made it to the hub, those of you present, the team members and the participants. It's really wonderful to have you people. Thank you once again to be on the conference.
Challenges and opportunities. Our question now is, what practical steps can stakeholders take to ensure renewable energy solutions beyond projects and create lasting social and economic transformation in local communities?
Okay, please, can you take the question again? You were breaking at some point.
Okay. Okay. Africa's energy transition presents both challenges and opportunities. Now, the question is, what practical steps can stakeholders take to ensure renewable energy solutions move beyond projects and create lasting social and economic change for local communities?
Okay, thank you very much for your question. So basically, on your question, you're asking on African energy transition and possibly the practical steps that stakeholders should ensure renewable energy solution move beyond projects and create last-longing social and economic transformation and communities. So basically, we talk about stakeholders moving from project to ensure that all innovations are actually practical or comes to reality. It goes through a lot of process. So we have to know that renewable energy is not all about the project we have and other things, but bringing it to reality is what we look at. So basically, I'll be highlighting 3 to 5 major areas. So basically, I'll start from project to transformation. So the issue we have and Nigeria, our country precisely, is that the stakeholders should and entrepreneurs should try as much as possible to put the necessary conditions in place to expand the local assembly of the solar components like panels, batteries, inverters, and mounting structures to ensure that these systems are being assembled within the location, which is Africa and Nigeria. Because if these systems are not assembled here, we always have so much limitations when it comes to bringing the project to a reality. So we also have to look at, I would like to cover most especially when it comes to the aspect of technicality and training. So I'll say that they have to establish energy industrial clusters and training centers because not everybody has the knowledge of the renewable energy when it comes to the solar aspect. Not everybody knows how to manage energy. Not everyone knows how to use energy efficiently. So it's very important, and would I say you cannot omit this area of it. So the essence or the need to establish industrial clusters and training centers across Nigeria and Africa is going to go a long way in helping to ensure that the renewable energy sector is not just about projects, but also about bringing these projects to reality and bringing these ideas and innovation to life. And aside that, after learning, what next? Most people say, okay, yes, I can learn it and now I have the knowledge of it. What's the next thing we look at after learning? So you have to look at getting job creation. It's not just about learning. What the skill you are learning, the knowledge of renewable energy you are learning. After learning it, what's the next thing that follows? You have to look for job creation. So there have to be areas and policies that there are structures in place that we say, okay, after learning, I have maybe a paid internship, or I have series of conference to attend, or maybe I'm handling a mini grid project or whatever. You have to practice what you have learned. That is the only way that you can bring your project to a reality. Maybe you would have said, okay, I want this particular community, or many people have their target and say, okay, for this month, I want to at least let 5,000 homes get solar or whatever. It could be based on what you're thinking, but you should have a target for it. You should have a target job creation after learning, and also where you're going to apply the knowledge you've learned from the renewable energy. So if we look at the engineering solution and the centralized mini grids. So for what we have now, we know that our national grid in Nigeria is really unstable, and it's very uncomfortable for a whole lot of persons. And the essence of the mini grids that stakeholders can play a very vital role in is deploy the mini grids for rural areas, communities, schools, hospitals, and small businesses. So if you look at the mini grid for rural communities, let me not go too far. Let me use our states, for instance, Cross River States, as a practical example. Aside the state capital, which is Calabar, and I don't know much, but when I visited some other parts of Cross River, I think Ogoja, Okuku, I think they have difficulties. They didn't have lights, and they didn't have the knowledge that okay, people can actually do solar and a host of others. But if the stakeholders actually look at this into consideration and put up a project to like, okay, let us light up Ogoja, let us light up Akampa, you will see that with this project is not just about a project, it's more of an engineering solution now. So it's more of I have the idea to light up this place, I'm actually taking this into consideration, I'm actually taking the following steps, assembling the components of getting a solar solution, also teaching people how to install it, and okay, at the end of the day we can actually say okay, good, we've learned, we've practiced, we've designed, and now let us implement these ideas that we've done. Let's implement the ideas that we've done, and definitely that. So
Okay.
also
Thank you very much, Mr. Brent.
okay, let me just round up.
Okay.
Let me just round up
Okay.
with the financing and community ownership. Let me round up with the financing and community ownership, because as stakeholders, it's not just about the investing, it's about getting, you cannot just put your money into something that won't come out. So aside that, we have to have, should I say, a place or a green financing. So I say like a solar financing, because it's not everybody that can buy out solar outrightly. So there have to be a solar financing for it, which will make it easier for people to purchase it. And we also look at renewable energy projects into agriculture, healthcare, and education. So there should be standards like this. There should be policy favoring renewable energy if it's used in agriculture, healthcare, or education. And also there should be uh, success measurements through the job and half. So
Thank you very
basically, those
much,
are
sir.
things
A
that
round of applause, please.
are. So thank you so much. I believe that should be enough to answer your question. Thank you.
I'll come back to you, Mr. Brent, but for now, I'll go back to Mr. Victor. So, Mr. Victor, many communities face challenges such as limited access to energy, environmental issues, and unemployment. How can renewable energy, circular economy models, and sustainable innovation work together to address these challenges and create new opportunities? Did you get my question?
Yes, I get your question.
Okay.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for having me on this call this afternoon. Yeah, my name is Ambassador Victor, like everybody said, and it's a privilege and it's an honor to be here. And I really appreciate the organizers of this very timely conversation. Yes, for one of
Sorry
the
to
things I'm
cut
going
you,
to
sir.
answer
Can
from
we
that.
see your face? Mr. Victor,
Really?
can we see your face? Can you
Wow,
turn on your camera, please?
wow, can
Thank
you
you,
see
sir.
now? Okay, I think let me just go to an office area and talk. Okay, so because I'm currently the conference on the renewable energy here in Abuja. I'm based in Abuja, and there are conversations that are going on, very critical conversations, right? That we need to actually, as young people, be able to, break down and be able to engage, right? So, um, the question is, yes. So, as young people, are the 1% of the future. For our future better is that energy must be accessible, right? If you have been part of conversations over the last 10, 15 years, that the young people have been clamoring, even during the NSAS, that just give us energy and see us transform this country, right? So I am speaking, on behalf of the, larger population. Of course, the Student Chamber of Commerce, where we represent, we have over 1.8 million Nigerian students in the institutions, and I can tell you that. So when you talk about community, for me, I'm not just looking at the rural community because the world is borderless now, and then we are looking at a global village, right? And so community for us is like defined by association, relationship, and things like that. So let's look at the campus community, for example, right? So where we have broken energy issues, the energy is directly connected to the productivity and the creativity capacity of the Nigerian young person. So going back to the question that you talked about, that innovation, and the earlier speakers have actually spoken well about the ownership, when you are building solutions and everything. But there's a point I want to unpack this afternoon, is that young people must take energy solutions, renewable energy solutions personal. Like, we have to be very intentional about seeing this energy conversation. Many people might be in the room on the call and feeling like, why is Echo now talking about something about energy? Maybe because of personal gain on everything. But everything rises and fall on energy. And there's no way we can overemphasize that, right? That without the right energy, without the right energy access, all of us in this room right now, some of us have about 4 5 gadgets. I'm just breaking it down to the basics so that you will be able to know in practicality what we are talking about today. That energy is so important that without it, of course, if my phone is not powered this afternoon, I can't even have access to you. Today, I'm using a smartwatch. Your earphones have to be charged, everything. So the need for energy is increasing every day. And then and we are a consumer economy, because the consumer economy means that we import everything that we do. Like, we are importing our gadgets, and those gadgets are built, for a community that the energy are constant, right? Even a remote village in Europe, remote forgotten village, that they only have transportation to the city once in a week. They have light, constant light. You understand? They've been able to decentralize energy to a level that anyone can, is a plug and play. Hello, please. Hello. Hello. So it's actually like that. So now, building up from that, now when we talk about renewable energy, is that one of the alternative energies, moving away from the national grid, like somebody said. So it's like moving from the national grid that over the years has not been sustainable, right? That means there are pockets of energy. Like in my house now, I am connected to the national grid, and also have, I have my house is also powered as a support with solar energy. Now, what I'm saying is that many things are now happening across Nigeria to actually democratize access to energy. Number one is that the National Electrification and Rural Agency have been all states now have the autonomy to be able to generate their own energy. So I want us to pay attention, because when you talk about energy, that is what is going to drive the future that we are all talking about, the globalization that we're talking about. Now, so those innovations, the thing I'm going to say in this, my first response, is that we must take those things, like somebody said, let them build with us in mind. Also, is that we also must be intentional about it, and that's why I'm going to give you some data points. So currently, we have about 16 states that have started moving on it to be able to democratize access to energy. Then we have about 20 states remaining to be able to take access to this. So as these things are happening, and then the Rural Electrification Agency, they are already coming to our campuses to come and build grids, solar powers and things like that. We must begin to follow up. And these conversations like we are having today, they are very important to be able to show us that that perspective, that Nigeria that is ours is getting better, and then that renewable energy has a place in it. And so the value, of course, on the other flip side of business, from the line of usage, we need to now begin to look at it, that what are the business and the value chain that I can, that I can tap into. Like I mentioned, there's a lot of decentralization. So the situation is no longer green. You understand? And then there are a lot of laws and regulations on the solar system. So innovations are heavy. They are available to be able to make the young people to actually know that renewable energy has come to stay, to be able to drive and power an innovative future for us. I hope I've been able to make a very meaningful contribution there. Thank you.
A round of applause for you, please. Okay, so we are back to Mr. Ernest. Mr. Ernest, from your experience, what are some scalable solutions or models that can help bridge the gap between sustainability ideas, policy frameworks, and real implementation at the community level?
Sorry, just take the question again, sorry.
Yeah.
Take the question again.
So from your experience, what are some scalable solutions or models that can help bridge the gap between sustainability ideas, policy frameworks, and real implementation at the community level?
Okay. To bridge the gap between sustainability solutions at community level. I think I would say one way to bridge this gap is to ensure that, just like the other speaker said, solutions that are being provided to sustainability approaches to be able to meet the need of the people to which they are being provided for. For instance, like this solutions for this project, for instance, projects like renewable energy projects, they should go directly to these communities, and they should be sited where communities are easy reach. Sometimes you see some of these projects, you see people taking projects, organizations, due to whatever they feel like they site projects where they are not so beneficial to the community. And then you see that this project don't normally last because there is no, it's not impacting the people to which it was established for. So to bridge that gap, project should be able to reach the people it is intended for at the right time, and then before that it will be helped in also the monitoring of those projects. Like I said earlier during my presentation, when community members become parts of the project, they help in the monitoring process and the implementation process. So to bridge that gap, projects must be cited at where they can be of easy reach to benefiting communities, so that you don't just cite projects where you feel like that. And sometimes you go to communities, you go to areas where there's a particular project, and because the contractor must just decide to site it anywhere he feels like, but there is a particular place that fits those projects. And if given the community opportunity, then no better chances where those projects can be more beneficial to them. But sometimes you see, due to negligence of contractors and others, you see them diverting projects, and then at the end of the day, those projects do not really have an impact. So to bridge that gap, they must ensure there must be a cordial relationship between those carrying out those projects and the benefiting communities, so that those projects can actually accomplish the purpose for which it's being established. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. A round of applause, please. I hope you are getting these answers. Okay, Mr. Brent, we are back to you. So, looking ahead, what role should young innovators, entrepreneurs, and sustainability advocates play in shaping Africa's future around clean energy, circular economy, and climate resilience?
Okay, please, can you take the question again? Say what role can...
Okay. What role should young innovators, entrepreneurs, and sustainability advocates play in shaping Africa's future around clean energy, circular economy, and climate resilience?
Okay, all right, thank you. So basically, I'll just have to look at this on just two main perspective, and I see one perspective as youth as drivers of Africa clean energy future, because basically we are the youths, and when it comes to renewable energy, you don't expect people who have not witnessed this, and you don't expect people that do not know what it takes or do not know the benefit of renewable energy to drive it. So basically, for me, on my end, I'll see youth as the drivers of Africa clean energy future. So we have young innovators already, and the issue is, or the suggestion to them is that young innovators should develop affordable solar storage, EV, and smart grid solution. So I see a lot of it now. And I think when I went to Uyo early this year, I was very impressed when I saw electric tricycle and electric boat. So and this is all assembled in Uyo. And I went to their I think their warehouse or their workshop, and I saw it's mostly young person. So if we the youth cannot drive this, we cannot drive this transformation of clean energy, it's going to be a bit difficult. So I'll just say young innovators should develop affordable storage solar. So in as much as young people are into it, it should be affordable, because if the service is not affordable, then most times it's difficult to sell out. So the solution they are providing should be affordable, and the entrepreneur should utilize manufacturing, assembly, and maintenance. And so also we have to look at how these activities can influence quality, climate education, and community awareness. So in as much as they are offering clean energy, it was able sustainable enough to influence the policies, climate education, and community awareness. People should be aware that, okay, yes, we are using a clean source of energy which is coming from the sun, to ensure that we we get something better off than what we are having now, something that is sustainable and something that works day in, day out. So I think based on the population we have in our country, I think the population we have in Nigeria is enough to drive the sustainability of the clean within Nigeria and also Africa. So look at circular economy. So basically, on very simple on circular economy, something that can be renewed, an economy that does not get depleted over time. You can regenerate it. So that's more like a regenerated economy. So most times you could also see that these solar components can be recycled. So instead of letting them go, so I feel that, okay, yes, it's good and fine to say for a circular economy, we also have to look at recycling of dead batteries, electronic waste, and the solar panels. And we should also look at labs and workshop where we can have offer technical talents that could also refurbish these components and bring them back to life. And we also have to look at the local chain that reduce import and create job, because if we start manufacturing and if we start refurbishing those solar components within our region, you will see that there are going to be more job opportunities rather than importing these finished products from developed countries. So I also encourage our universities, most especially for, I think, Faculty of Engineering across Nigeria, that they should also put in place the collaboration with technology innovation. So they should also ensure that, at least, yes, the world is shifting, that the kind of engineering we are practicing in our school should be something that can solve problem when we are out of the four walls of the school. So thank you, and that should be that for that question.
Mr. Victor, one more question for you. Investment remains a major driver of sustainable development. What strategies can affect more private sector investment and public-private partnerships into renewable energy and climate-focused projects across African communities?
Please, please repeat the first part of the question.
Okay, sir. Remains a major driver of sustainable development. What
I think
strategies?
I hear. Please, just the first line.
Okay. Investment remains a major driver of sustainable development. Now the question is, what strategies can attract more private sector investment and public-private partnerships into renewable energy and climate-focused projects across African communities?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, that I'm also currently in a conference on energy, and there's a lot of expertise that is coming in from across the world. And one of the things that we've concluded just today in the first session is that there's a lot of skill gap, right? Maybe I should give you a statistic around that so that you'll be able to understand where I am bringing my contributions from. One is that currently Nigeria is in debt of over 2 trillion in energy payments, from the former arrangement that we're having with the national grid. Of course, some of them have come out to, some due to embezzlement, some to mismanagement, but overall there's a lot of money to be paid to partners and people that have actually helped in supporting energy generally. Now, coming to renewable energy, and like I mentioned earlier, that the states are now having power to be able to generate, because we need to speak into practicality and reality, so that we are not just gathering to just have another conference, another conversation that is not speaking into our reality. So now, like I mentioned the other time, that 20 states are still remaining. 16 states have actually keyed into energy generation, right, that the government has given them, which is a laudable step to be able to go. Now, when you talk about investment, when you talk about innovation, where are these investments going? They are to be able to power these communities to be able to be self-sustaining. And let me tell you, energy is costly. Energy costs money. And that's one thing that Africa is getting to have a grip of. Now, that means that at the end of the day, these states will have to be able to pick up these bills. And then we are talking about metering, being able to dispense this, when you are talking about even renewable energy, we talk about solar now. To be able to do solar, you need landed properties, you need land to be able to do solar, where you install the panels and things like that. Now, all these things at those levels, yes, that is what calls for investment. But at the end of the day, like I said, is the backbone and the driver of the economy. This investment must have a way that they will be recuperated. You understand that this, if the government must provide an enabling environment that private sector, international organizations that want to come and help us invest in our energy infrastructure must have a guarantee and be able to know that these things are well embraced by the community, and the community will be ready to pay. Now, personally, from our organization, we have been part of some rural electrification projects across Ondo State, where communities that have not had electricity for more than 16 years, 30 years, we are helping them to set up infrastructures to be able to again give them electricity. Yes, all those things as well. One thing that attracted the investors at that point was that, are you sure these people will be able to pay back? You understand? And then their paying back is determined on a lot of things. Yes, the energy we are bringing to them is going to enhance their productivity. We have to invest also in infrastructure and technology to be able to meter and then be able to make them recover this investment. So that is on the practical side. Now on the principle side is that in every environment, all the stakeholders that are involved, you understand, in energy must be willing to cooperate, to be able to go all the way, to be able to make sure that investments are recuperated and in good time. You understand? So that we are not having bad debts, like the example I mentioned from the national grid and things like that. So that means, and also one of the gaps I see is that young people must be conscious. I've said it all the time that we cannot overemphasize that young people must be now, but because one of the things that the international partners that we're having meeting with today said was that there's a lack of manpower. One of the speakers mentioned it on this panel just now that universities, academic institutions will begin to equip young people for the revolution of renewable energy that is coming. Most of the, in fact, even in our national grid, most of the things that we are using today, they are dependent on expatriates. They have, when one small thing spoil, they have to bring somebody from outside the country. So we must be able to create structures, even in partnership with the academic institution, to be able to, like you mentioned, engineering, mechanical, and then to be able to create infrastructure that we relate with the industry and the academy. That's what we do in our organization, the Student Chamber of Commerce, where we want to connect from bottom top, to be able to create a preparedness for the young people to be able to fill in the gap of energy, of the manpower that will be needed to be able to make energy to be sustainable. I've talked about investment preparedness, I've talking about government willingness, and then I've talked about capacity development for the young people. You understand? Of course, some people will be self-taught, but relationship and partnership with academic institutions to be able to make the value chain of energy investment to be sustainable, right? And I believe that is something that we ought to take home from this conversation we are having today, so that as we are talking with this communique of this conference, shared with partners, stakeholders, it will be noted that yes, everybody has a part to play, the community leaders, the institutions, the government, because when you talk about renewable energy, is another word for sustainability. And for sustainability to happen, all hands must be on deck for a long time. You understand? It's not something that, it's just a placard. Renewable energy has come to stay. You understand? It's even more something that is more indigenous. We have a lot of resources, like we have sunlight almost all year round. We have all the things that is needed to be able to power. We have wind, high velocity of wind in some part of the country. So these are things that are even natural to us, but the infrastructure to be able to make these are not readily available. So it is required, investment is required, and then for those investment to be sustainable, all ends needs to be on deck. Thank you. Hello, hope I was audible. Hello.
Take over.
Hello, good afternoon. I hope you can all hear me. All right, thank you, and my friend, for that wonderful conversation. I think anything that definitely should hold some session. To call it contributions from other conference members, and also have been about guest speaker really invited. Then that would be us not actually the conference is now open. If you have anything to say, if you have any question to ask, at least somebody should ask a question as we continue the conversation. We will not create room for that. So for those online, just indicate it by raising up your hands, your digital hand. We'll call you to ask, or we'll give you the permission to ask a question or make a comment. For those joining on site, if you also have any contribution or question to ask, we will give you the opportunity to do so. I know on the call we have the climate and renewable energy space on the call and also in the hall. Are you trying to be very economical with your knowledge? Please, that will not be a solidarity to this conference. I don't want to assume that. Mr. Daniel, I know you've done so much work around the climate space. You can see Mr. Morrison on the call, Mr. David, a whole lot of persons. Please, if you have anything to say now, before we call it a wrap.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Dane. Okay, you're free to.
All right, thank you. I want to use this opportunity to thank all the speakers for the insight they have shared. I've really learned a lot. I have a question, although I've dropped it in the chat. I'm just asking, these batteries that are used for this solar energy, um, don't you all think that in future it will have an environmental, it will bring about environmental issues? Or I also want to know if there are ongoing research or ongoing, let me say, practices to help handle the environmental issues these batteries will bring. Also, in my own contribution to energy conversation, particularly in Africa here, um, for me, I will advise, or I will say that Africans should take charge of the solar production, because according to International Energy Agency, Africa possesses 60% of the world's best solar resources. That means we have the resources for making these solar batteries, solar system, and everything. Because the goal is to make this solar stuff to be very affordable. Because one of the challenges people are having in terms of using solar is the cost. Is very, very high. So for me, I would think if Africa will take charge, of the both the manufacturing and also the whole process that has to do with from the production to the users. I think this will cut down a lot of what cost. For instance, while I was traveling back home, around the following Odupani Road, I was asking the driver like what these Chinese people are doing around that area. So he told me that they are mining materials that will be used for battery. For instance, lithium. Yeah, I think he mentioned lithium and magnesium or thereabout. So I was now asking, if we have these resources, what is now limiting us? What is now limiting us from taking charge in the production, in the manufacturing of these batteries and all these solar materials? Because I believe if we take charge in that, it will really cut down the cost of solar production, and that will lead to much people using solar in the society, and also it will help more. It will also allow more businesses, small medium businesses, to be able to purchase this solar. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dane, for your contribution. But please, can you just recap on that your question again? I am not seeing the question on the chat as you mentioned.
Okay, my question goes like this. Don't you think that in future, these batteries will cause more environmental challenges or environmental problems? Are there ongoing efforts to control the environmental impact these batteries, like because after using or maybe when the battery is no longer in use, or they are no longer using, they would dispose it or thereabout? Are there ongoing efforts to control the environmental impact?
All right, that is very, very it from a climate advocate. So already there's a hand, Mr. Brent. You can unmute and just share your thoughts with us as well.
Okay, so thank you very much, Daniel, for the question. And this question has not just you that have been asking, it's a question that has been circulating. What next after using the batteries? So I think research have been made over time, and possibly there are battery recycling processes that the public might not be aware of. So you don't expect the people, the manufacturers, and also some technicians, even in Nigeria, even in Cross River here, Calabar precisely, and Lagos, and the host of other cities within Nigeria and Africa, there is how they recycle dead batteries. So definitely for the tubular batteries, the main component is the lead acid, and the same thing applies for gel battery. So lead acid can be recycled without causing so much harm while recycled or when it's being recycled. Now, the essence of the switch from the tubular battery to the gel battery, and now we have a lot of lithium batteries in the market. The essence of the research and the switch was that when you use a tubular battery, when it is charging the electrolysis process, there's always a release of fumes that are not healthy, and over time, if you keep inhaling these fumes, it can lead to severe respiratory diseases and possibly infections. That is why the tubular batteries were now rebranded to what we have, the gel batteries, which you don't need to replace the electrolyte inside. And I think possibly now we have lithium. So you see, lithium takes a lot of time to degrade as an element. Is what we use in our phones, our power banks, and a host of other things that we use lithium battery today. And the new research that makes lithium battery last and make it safer to the environment is the battery management system of it. So the battery management system controls the battery to the safe limits. You cannot use the battery beyond a particular limit. So that increased, or that gives the battery a better lifespan, and also reducing the possibility of hazards that might happen if the battery is overused, overcharged, or is not used in the right way. Now there are some chargers, or let me use solar so that you understand. There are some connection you do to a particular battery. The battery won't charge, not because there is not enough voltage and current coming from your panels, but because the battery has its own acceptable, should I say, what's the word I'll use there? The battery has its BMS, which detects the amount of currents that comes in. So it's, I think now it's very difficult to find a lithium battery that will cause havoc to the environment because of their research they have made by introducing the battery management system to it. And same applies for the gel battery. And I think they are also working on the lithium battery. The tubular battery. I think the tubular battery are the batteries that have a little health hazard to the society. But if you follow the guidelines of installing it outside in a well ventilated area, I think it's very okay, and it's healthy for the environment. So I don't see it as something that can cause havoc, because we have research going in based on the reviews that end users send out to the manufacturers. And also, I think you made mention about Nigerian producing locally fabricated lithium batteries and a host of others. Yes, it's a good idea, but the thing is, we'll have to set up our policies, has to favor people that wants to produce these batteries, and also ensure that there are regulatory bodies to ensure that these batteries meet international standards. So, because I think there was a video circulating that the locally made lithium battery was actually exploding. So if this local fabrication or local manufacturing can meet international standards, then I think we are good to go when it comes to production and fabrication of batteries and solar components. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brent, for that wonderful insight. I think we are gradually beginning to come to the close of the day one conference. I want to assume nobody have any contribution to make or question to ask again. Okay, Mr. Morris, I think that should be the last vote today. So please you can unmute your mic and join in the conversation.
Thank you. Good afternoon once more. I'd like to appreciate the
Good afternoon.
I'd like to appreciate the speakers for this awesome session. I really enjoyed and learned a lot. I'd like to ask, I don't know if we have anybody in the security or probably say economic sector in this meeting, right, in this conference, but I'd like to point out something. Recently, we've been having a lot of insecurity issues happening in the country, and we look at bringing in investors, both local and international investors into the different sectors in Nigeria. I mean, of course, notwithstanding the one we are currently talking about, the renewable energy sector and the rest of them, you know. So, and sustainability, as a sustainability advocate here, would like to say that, of course, that sustainability is built on environmental, social, and economic pillars. You cannot just do without those three. And given that this security undermines investors' confidence in Nigeria, I don't know if there are concrete steps that have been taken. One of it, which I've seen, which is the whole, the local police, security architecture that has been introduced into the nation. But I'd also like to point out that this might take a longer time, knowing the country that we find ourselves. I don't know how that's going to how long that's going to take, but that's also going to be like a major barricade or barrier to us having a lot of investors coming into Nigeria to invest on this. It's one thing to put up an infrastructure, it's another thing to maintain it and ensure that the security of these things are very perfect. If you want to put up solar panels and the rest, you put it up in well ventilated areas, and you need to, like you said, we talked about buying land and the rest, getting landed properties to ensure that you set up these things. Setting it up in a place where, of course, you're going to have security, but of course, not as strong as what the economic, the insecurity issues in Nigeria is a whole lot, and a lot of investors are running away already. I know of people who wanted to invest, but they are not investing, both private, both all of them, and it's a very big problem. So I'd like to find out. I don't know if there's anything like that. If anybody wants to contribute to that, if there are like strategies, there are like measures we have to put in place to ensure that we bring back the investors' confidence to this particular aspect of this particular sector of the nation. Yes, that's my question. And I really like to appreciate I know I'll not be talking again, but I really like to appreciate the organizers of this conference. This is a whole lot, and I've learned a lot on a short time that I was here. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Mr. Morris, for that question. I want to, let me just ask, to be sure that we got your question right. So your question is, what are the policy or framework on ground to boost investors' confidence concerning the security risks or challenge Nigeria currently have around the renewable energy or climate change sector? Is that your question?
Yes, thank you. That's the question. Got it.
The question was not to the moderator. Stop me looking at me like that. So, so who can I attempt that question? Who can attempt the question? Okay. On-site audience, can you say something? Mr. Morris was the one that asked the question, so his hand is still up. I want somebody from on-site to share his or what do you think? Boko Haram, people will not want to invest, but people should come and invest so that the sector can improve. What are those things we can do to ensure that investors truly trust that a place like Nigeria is a place they can come and just take in some money to improve on some of the areas or challenges we know around the industry? Any thoughts? The question is, considering the security challenge in the country, what are the things we need to do, to be from the government or maybe we ourselves? What are those things we need to do to boost investors' confidence to invest in Nigeria around climate change or renewable energy? Okay.
The question tackling insecurity in Nigeria is just, it's not an easy task, but there must be something to be done. First of all, tackling insecurity by starting from different, sending, deploying it to different states so that they can know where they come in and where they go at, like those at the customs. Another thing is setting up tactical agenda so that those sequesters can be reached out by, I hope, and we'll use this method. If you see something, you say something. I think by this method being put in place, we can have a good, secured country for investors to invest their money. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Please, what's your name? Oh, thank you so much, Bright, for sharing your insight with us. I think there's another contribution. You want to contribute? Please come close.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to really appreciate Nelson for that wonderful question. One thing you need to understand that a country without a proper strategic security network, it's always vulnerable for insecurity to happen. Now, one of the most significant things for a country to do so that it will be welcoming for investors to come in is to put up a strategic structure in line with the different security agencies. Now, it's not in your place as the person or the partner inviting these people to come in to tell them, okay, this country is safe, this country is safe. It's for you to do a strategic partnership with these security agencies, and then they will now tell these companies or these investors, okay, we have analyzed the situation in the country, we have seen where the loopholes is, and we are tackling it. And we can assure you that when you come into Nigeria or when you come into an environment like this, we assure you and will always keep you updated on the security matters and the place, situations, a situationship of environment, and we can assure you that if you come in, you can handle business in our environment safely and securely without not having any problem. So with this, it will boost the investors' confidence, knowing fully well that, okay, the security agencies have a strategic plan and they are doing something about it. Coming from them, they have this assurance, okay, since it's coming from the security agencies, we have at least a leverage on them. It's not just about the person. Maybe if you think of it in a way that the person inviting me is not about the money, but when it's coming from the security agencies, okay, now we have leverage because the security agency are actually doing what needs to be done and what is necessary for them to put the country in a safe and a safer place for any investor to come in. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Samuel. I think there is another. Okay, Mr. Ernest.
Okay, thank you very much. His question is how to boost investors' confidence owing to the fact that there's rising insecurity in the country. And I think one of the ways to boost this confidence is, firstly, as a country, we cannot deny the fact that there are a lot of things that are not happening well within the country. And if we must say the truth as Nigerians, we need to act. So one thing is to boost their confidence is the government will be in charge of the security situation. When government takes over the security situation of its country, you don't need anybody to tell another person whether he should come and invest in your country or not. Because by the time they see this visible impact of how far you are tackling your security challenges, they know that yes, this this country is that it has paid for invest to go in there to do investment. Now, recently, I think earlier this week, the Senate passed the police bill. These are strategies that can boost confidence, investors' confidence, because it gives an investor the mindset that yes, the government is already taking proactive steps to bring about lasting solutions to the security challenges within each country. And then the country must not dwell on propaganda too, because when there is much propaganda in the country, it gives other people lack of confidence in the country, because today most of the things we Nigerians do is propaganda. Because of the challenge, we take advantage of the challenges of the country and say what we want to say, because we want to get views, because we want to get comments on social media, because we want to get likes. But whereas as patriotic citizens, we attend to report actual situations, security situations of the country, and not leverage on the situation of your country for selfish interest or for whatever gain. So these are things that when we do as a people, as a country, yes, we know that security situation is not getting anywhere better, but we can make it look, not trying to give it a good face, even though it's not good, but there are other things we can do. Avoiding propaganda, taking proactive steps, increasing the security architecture, and ensuring that securities are well equipped. Because by the time security gets what they need to tackle the security challenges that are facing them, they do it at ease. So I think when these things are put in place, you don't need any other person to start telling investors that this country, I should go to this country and invest, or I shouldn't go to this country and invest, because those things will become very easy to see by anybody, because local and foreign observers are within seeing the situations that is going on within the country, and they can attest to the fact that at this point or at a certain point, the country is saved for investment and for business opportunities. Thank you.
I was thinking we're coming to the end of the conference, but I think it's just beginning. There's a whole lot of interest and so many persons wanting to say a word or two words. But I think maybe we are not getting Mr. Nelson's point. That is why his hand is up. Before we make input, we should give him the opportunity to maybe give clarity. Yes. So, Mr. Nelson.
Okay,
Maurice,
thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. They actually got my question right, and they're hitting the nail on the head. I just wanted to like contribute something in that aspect as well, right? What I wanted to say is that I think maybe to the organizers, when we're having the next conference, we should also try to bring in government and policy makers into the conference, because some of these things are things that they need to hear themselves, right? I don't know if there's a way that they can hear this, but I think these are some of the things they need to hear. If there's anything I know that has really happened, which I don't know how many of you are happy about what's actually happening in Nigeria presently, but the thing that's brought joy to me recently is the whole state policing thing this state policing bill that has been signed, right? It helps to we're talking about community ownership, if it feels like you letting people coming into your, let's say like for Cross River State, for instance, people coming in from probably Ebonyi State or maybe other neighboring states to come and spoil your own things. You not like that. So it is now our own thing. We now appoint our own commissioners, we now appoint our own police. So you take care of your community. It is now a community thing. I don't know if you guys get. So yeah, that's one thing. And then another thing that I think about is when we're talking about, I'm not really very knowledgeable on renewable energy, solar, and the rest of them. I just know it's in the climatic aspect of it. And now I think that these mini grids that have been done, that they are not just those massive ones, just like we see in Algeria, Morocco, and the rest. They have massive solar farms that are being put into in places and all. So these other smaller mini grids that are being installed in different homes, it helps to reduce the vulnerability of that community. They don't know, they understand that the community is having solar and all, but of course they don't know where it is. It could be installed in your house, it could be installed on your roof, and then it's not like a massive destruction. So yes, that's what I wanted to say about that. I just wanted to also talk about the whole bringing in policymakers and governments, parastatals and the rest into our next conference, so that to help for them to hear this from us. I know that people can talk from there. Thank you so much. I think I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that observation. I'm very sure the program person and Ekun team are taking notes of that, so that in the next conference we'll be having State Prince join us. So we know, as it has to do with regulations and policies, we are covered. So just say your mind. You know that feeling in classroom, don't want to say that student just say what I wanted to say. No idea. Mr. Ken, you still want to say something? Okay. I think after Mr. Ken, that will be all.
Thank you very much. Let's just look at Nigeria as a playground, as a playground. You know, a playground is a place where children come to play. And if that playground is not safe for kids to play, their parents will not bring their kids. You know, this is they come with their toys. Or let's look at Nigeria like that has bullies. What are the duties of the teachers? Is to take out those bullies. So if those bullies are not taken out from the school, parents will not want to bring their children to those schools because of their safety. So the thing that government needs to do is what? Fix electricity. Conversions are not coming because of what? Lack of electricity, bad roads to some areas, taxation. You know, the rate of tax in some companies are what? Also driving some investors away from the country. So these are not. We need to look into these major things, to fix in order to bring in investors into the country. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. He touched something very, very important. You think security has nothing to do with power? There's power security, because those are all things that will boost investors' confidence. I think Mr. Bryce will just say the last thing he wants to share with us, and we'll call it a wrap for the conference. So, Mr. Bryce.
Thank you so much. When he was speaking, something he said, that is like something that is too much. People that have company in this country, they pay a whole lot. I'm talking out of experience, but I don't have evidence. But from what I heard, they say that they pay a lot of tax, and that's why some of our investors and some people that have companies in Nigeria, outside Nigeria, because of over ambiguous taxes. So I think when the government consider the country will be a better place, and there will be more jobs for the youth. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bryce. Thank you. We've had a very, very interesting conversation for the past 3 hours here today. We started by 12 and we are pushing 3 p.m. But I hope you are aware that even when they will kidnap someone in this country tomorrow, investors are still coming to this country around climate change, around renewable energy. So the question we should be asking ourselves is, how are these maybe private companies bringing investors to the country irrespective of the security challenges? Because if we can get that question right, we'll know how to bring investors to the country. If talking about tax, everywhere you pay tax, the tax in Nigeria is small compared to what you even have in the Western world. So let's leave tax. When you look at insecurity, what most serious investors look at is not whether they are kidnapping or they are stealing in your location. They want to look at regulations and policy. You have policy in your country that will protect their investment. So that if you're giving them license to operate, and tomorrow you're coming to say this is an APC government now, and you want to retrieve those things. You know how players and club agreement used to be. It's all about policy, and that is to ensure that some of these excesses are not. So depending on the area you want investors to come into your country for, take out for what are the regulations in these areas that will protect investors from. I never knew that in Nigeria we have regulations that promote building of mini grids. See, recently, so when we saw it, we're like, oh, really? So with that knowledge now, you can now start really pushing for hacks and things like that come to your location. And Mr. Ernest is something very, very important, community engagement. I think somebody mentioned on the call about when he was traveling, he noticed or he saw that they were mining. So if the community are not giving full, so in investors, Spain is the policies and the community. So the commission, take for instance, electrification, will give you license to operate and also license that you can tamper with the environment. So we should forget about insecurity most times and check out for those policies. The truth is, the policies are there, but we are most times not very, very, we lack the patience to do proper research. And because we want to follow what social media are telling us, we now just assume the environment is not fair for investors to come in. So that is another thing too we need to debunk, that we can bring investors even the way Nigeria is currently. And lastly, as you mentioned, stop demarketing the country on your social media handles. Some of those things we blow in our whistleblowing attempt, they are not the way they are. So please, if you know what you'll be sharing on your handles is not exactly what the situation is saying, just hold on. When that emotion will leave you and you will realize the effect or the consequences of what that little post have done to the country, you will regret why you even put out the post in the first place. So please, while we are online, we should look out for what we engage in, especially if it has to do with the sovereignty of our country, Nigeria, because investors will not come in. Let's look at for policy. Let's also see how we can be part of those community that are ensuring that projects like that work whenever they come in. Go to Bateba, the solar light they fix for that community. The panels are off. For the Boko Haram that did that, no community, they have not seen the benefit. So most times, everybody have a role to play to ensure that investments are secured in those environments that they are putting in those funds into. So thank you so much. I want to believe we don't have any other person coming in to say another thing. So as we come to the close of our day one conference, tomorrow we'll be having another very, very engaging conversation, though that is not going to be on site. We'll be having it virtually. The Nigerian time is 9 p.m. Kenya time is 10 p.m. The Nigerian time is 7 p.m. Kenya time is 10 p.m. But imagine somebody staying on the call from another location just to impact or share knowledge with you. So if the call is to last from 7 to 9, he will stay away from 10 p.m. to midnight, sharing information with participants of the conference, and it will be so terrible that he comes to that conference and we are not there. So please, tomorrow, the way we join today's on, we should also put our minds to be part of the conversation tomorrow. Tomorrow we will be speaking more about investment. That is the truth. This person has won several grants. He has won a whole lot of scholarships. So he's coming to share with us. So if you also want to win a grant, if you want to see how they did it, remember I said, even with security challenges, investment are still coming into the country. So join the call tomorrow and learn from somebody that have done it before, so that you too, you can have your own story to tell. So I hope we'll all be around tomorrow in the conference. And honestly, we cannot wait to have you all. So we will now come to the end of the conference. On behalf of the Econa team, I want to say thank you to everyone for this historic first edition of our Econa Renewable Energy Conference. We look forward to continuing the conversation and seeing many of you join for our virtual session tomorrow. For those of us that will be going back, please watch the KK you'll be entering. Be sure that it's not Iditaino, so that your phones will be very, very available for you to join the session tomorrow. If the driver is over speeding, let the driver know you are somebody's child, wife to be, husband to be in the future. So your life is also important so that they don't overspeed. Thank you, and have a wonderful afternoon. So with that, we have come to the end of the ONE's conference. Audience that joined virtually, we want to say thank you. It's not easy to hop on the call and stay for hours. So thank you so much. See you tomorrow. Bye. Let those that will be here. Hey.